What if a massive silent airship could just vanish without a trace? Imagine seeing it, hearing nothing, and then, poof. This isn't science fiction. It's the chilling true story of the Ghost Blimp, an aviation mystery that has baffled experts for decades and will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about unexplained disappearances. It was August 16th, 1942, in the middle of World War II. The Pacific coast was on alert, and the U.S. Navy guarded its skies with watchful precision. That morning, a silver airship lifted off from Treasure Island near San Francisco. It was the L-8, one of the Navy's patrol blimps, designed to search the coastline for enemy submarines. On board were two experienced officers, Lieutenant Ernest Cody and Ensign Charles Adams. Both were well-trained, disciplined, and familiar with every inch of their airship. Their orders were simple: fly west, patrol the waters off San Francisco, and report anything unusual. The sky was calm. The weather was clear, and at 6 a.m., the L-8 floated peacefully into the morning mist, its engines humming softly over the ocean. No one could have imagined that just a few hours later, the blimp would return, pilotless, drifting silently over a crowded neighborhood. At 7:38 a.m., Cody radioed in to base. They had spotted something, an oil slick on the water, possibly from a submarine. The L-8 descended to investigate. It was routine procedure. Cody's calm, professional voice confirmed their position. And then the radio went silent. Minutes passed, then hours. There were no distress calls, no mechanical reports, no signs of trouble, just silence. At 9 a.m., fishermen off Maury Point, near the small town of Pacifica, saw the L-8 hovering strangely low over the sea. It circled slowly, dipping toward the water as if searching for something beneath the waves. The engines sounded uneven, like they were idling. After a few minutes, the blimp rose again, disappearing into the fog. Witnesses thought little of it, until they realized it never returned to base. By 10:30 a.m., people all along the coast began to notice a strange sight in the sky. The Navy blimp was flying erratically, slowly drifting inland. Residents of Daly City watched in astonishment as it floated low over rooftops, its engines sputtering. One man said he could see straight into the open gondola, but saw no one inside. The blimp's control cable was dangling loose. The cabin door was wide open, flapping in the wind. It seemed empty, and yet it kept flying, as if guided by a ghost. At 11 a.m., the L-8 struck the top of a hill and deflated slowly, collapsing into a quiet suburban street. It didn't explode or burn. It simply sagged onto power lines, its silver skin folding like cloth. Firefighters and police rushed to the scene. They expected to find two injured men inside. But when they opened the gondola door, there was no one there. Inside, everything was intact. The radio worked. The parachutes were untouched. The life jackets still hung on their hooks. The first aid kit was sealed. Even the blimp's machine gun remained loaded, its safety still on. There was no sign of a struggle. No bullet holes, no blood, no damage. Only an open door and two missing men. The Navy quickly sealed off the area and began an exhaustive investigation. The L-8 had been in perfect condition when it took off that morning. The engines were tested after the crash. Both were functional. The blimp itself was flyable. There was nothing wrong with the ship. Whatever happened to Cody and Adams didn't come from mechanical failure. Search teams combed the ocean where the airship had last been seen. They found no wreckage, no debris, no life vest, no bodies. The Pacific yielded nothing. The only trace of the men was a mysterious hat. found floating near the oil slick where the blimp had descended. It belonged to Lieutenant Cody. No one could say how it ended up there. The Navy's report listed the cause of the disappearance as unknown. There was no evidence of enemy activity that day, no Japanese submarines within range, and even if there had been, the blimp carried no damage that suggested gunfire or attack. Still, rumors spread. Some said the men had opened the cabin door to look at something on the surface and accidentally fallen out. But these were trained pilots. The blimp's railing was waist high, and it was moving slowly. Falling out by accident was nearly impossible. Others whispered of espionage, that they'd been abducted or had defected to the enemy. But there was no motive, no signs of secret communication, no unexplained wealth or contact. They were loyal Navy men, and so the theories grew stranger. A few locals claimed the airship had hovered for several minutes over the sea that morning, circling a dark shape just below the surface, something massive and still. Some said it was a submarine. Others believed it was something else entirely. A sailor from the Coast Guard later recalled hearing an odd, metallic thrum on his ship's sonar that same morning. A noise he had never heard before or since. But like everything else about the Ghost Blimp, that sound was never explained. By afternoon, the L-8 was hauled away for examination. It was patched, repaired, and eventually returned to duty. For years afterward, it was flown again, this time by the Goodyear Company, its old civilian owner, as a promotional blimp over football games and parades. The crowd would cheer when they saw it, never realizing the eerie truth. They were looking at the same airship that once returned home without its crew. The same vessel that had floated silently over California, empty and unpiloted. No one was ever held responsible. No wreckage, no evidence, no remains were ever found. The official report closed the case quietly, leaving behind a mystery that has never faded. The families of the two men received no real answers, only the Navy's assurance that everything possible had been done. But what can you do when two people vanish from the sky? Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Some think the men were overcome by fumes from a fuel leak, opened the door for fresh air, and fell. Others believe they were attacked or abducted by an enemy vessel patrolling beneath the surface. And some wonder if the truth is far stranger, that they encountered something beyond explanation, something the Navy chose never to reveal. But one thing is certain, the L-8 did not crash because of mechanical failure. It didn't burn, it didn't explode, it simply came back empty. Today, the Ghost Blimp remains one of aviation's most unsettling, unsolved cases. It's a story of silence and absence, of two men who vanished without a trace, while the machine they controlled returned home alone, a machine built for war, floating gently down into a city street, carrying nothing but questions. When you look up at the sky, it's hard not to wonder about the moments we lose, the stories that vanish between clouds and time. Somewhere, out over the Pacific, maybe the truth still lingers in the wind. Maybe the ocean knows what happened that morning, and it simply refuses to tell. All we know is that the blimp came back, its engines quiet, its cabin empty, and the two men who flew it were never seen again. 80 years later, their story still drifts through the air, quiet, haunting, and unresolved, a mystery that refuses to land. The Ghost Blimp remains, not as a tale of war, but as a reminder. Even in an age of control, precision, and science, the sky still keeps its secrets. And sometimes, the silence above us speaks louder than anything else.